Hello. Okay, so week one of CELTA is done. And so let me get into what happened. Actually, I'm going to grab my folder because my memory is terrible. I'm getting old to do these things. And you don't have to have a folder, but I'm an old person that likes to keep everything organized. And I actually like to see the papers and stuff. I don't know. It's a weird thing with me. So week one, we had 2 sessions this week. They happen on Tuesday, Thursday mornings, and we go for about 4 hours or so, depending. And so I got into the checklist that I had mentioned before, and I started doing the reading. I had to read 3 manuals. They're not super bad. They're probably like 30 to 50 pages each. It wasn't that. It's just very dry because, as anybody knows, manuals are just instructions. So, I had 3 of them. So I had probably over 100 pages of instruction manuals to read, which was fine. It was good because it actually gives you a lot of orientation and where to find some resources, et cetera, et cetera. So that was good. I started working on my checklist, which consists of me doing hold on, let me actually refer to it because then I can give you kind of specifics, but again, I don't know how how much I'm supposed to give out. Anyways, I have to do a development plan for myself. I mean, that's pretty standard in any Cambridge formal training, like the CELTA that I did, the Delta. You have to do a development plan as you progress through the course. So this one is focused on strengths and weaknesses, what you plan on doing to improve your weaknesses, etc. throughout this process of the first course. And I had 8 tasks that I've been working on for the past week. So the first one was tracking my own development. So I set up my portfolio. I started reading everything, getting details, etc. I had some tasks that I had to do. Had to look at the syllabus and assessment guidelines, making sure I understood exactly what was included in the syllabus, how that translates into input sessions, and how CELTs get assessed. Again, going through the handbook and the timelines and when things need to be handed in and where they get sent to and what the responsibilities are for like the main course tutor, the assistant course tutor, a trainer in training, for the centers, for Cambridge, who's who and where it all goes, etc. So I read that. I probably have to read a couple more times to really absorb the information, but I'm getting there. Then I was looking into background reading and references and resources. So I started compiling lists of references for sorry, there's a truck. A list of references for CELTs, where they could go to get information that they needed for their assignments, for their teaching practices, for just general information if they needed to brush up on something. So I started going through that. It's quite extensive if you look at the syllabus and the things that need to be covered in the course. And of course, if you have one topic area, then probably you're going to have more than one reference. So I'm building it, and it's a process. It's been quite extensive trying to make sure that I have at least some references for people to go to because, it's important to give people references so they're able to absorb and on their own and find their own solutions. And then also I went through some of the selection process of the candidates. I sat in on an interview. So I have to do some tasks related to that in determining the viability of candidates that enter into the program and whether or not they are going to be successful or whether you think that they have the potential of being successful in the program, etc. So that was that. And then we have trainees that I have to monitor throughout the throughout the course. So I will be monitoring them, and I take copious amounts of notes. As my main course tutor has already realized, I am a note taker. So I'm creating little files on all of the trainees as they're going through the process. It's actually really good because I like to see how people are progressing through it, and where they start from, and hopefully I'll be able to see where they finish at, and see the difference there. The way that CELTAs are divided, if you haven't done one, is that there are the input sessions where everybody is together as a large group. And then we have the training practice, teaching practice. Just a lot of vocabulary and terminology. So the TPs, the teaching practice groups, are separate. So we actually have two groups with this current session. And so I'll be following half of the group through the beginning stages of lesson planning and delivering lessons, and I'm working with the group that's teaching the higher level learners, and then we switch. So then the trainees that are working with the elementary learners are then going to come with us, and our trainees are going to switch over with the other tutor, and so I'll be able to see the end of the teaching practice progress with the second half of the group, but I'll be working with them throughout their input session. So it's really interesting because I'll be able to see kind of the whole process for everybody. And then what I've been working on, and I just finished, was the input analysis. So every session that I attend, I have to do a report about what happens during the input session, and it's about the front part of it is about a page of kind of just filling in boxes and checking things off. And then I write another half a page to a page summary on what was going on, reflections, things that happened, et cetera, et cetera. So I take notes, and then I kind of review my notes and put that in. I will be, I did this week, the first week, I gave an inputs. That's a lie. I gave a lesson, a 90-minute lesson to the students, and the teachers, the trainee teachers, were observing my lesson, and then we had some feedback afterwards, which was good. It was interesting to see what they picked up on. Different perspectives. I love collecting perspectives, so that was quite interesting. And then next week, I'll be watching input session and watching the first trainees go through their unassessed teaching practice. So the first teaching practice, they're just going to be teaching. They'll be receiving feedback, but they're not going to be assessed, so there's no grading. So hopefully that will alleviate some of the stress. And I've already been assigned a few input sessions that I need to develop. So, and that's one of my tasks, that I have to fill out some reports and enter into my portfolio of building a session and also the materials that go along with it. So quite a bit of stuff going on. But I have to say, the group that we're working with, because we're working in Brazil, the group that I'm working with is there. Most of them, I think all of them have been teaching for at least a year, 6 months to a year. So they all have experience in the classroom, which is quite nice because, not necessary, but quite nice because they are familiar with some things. And so it allows the tutors to be a little bit more flexible in terms of the depth in which we can give them their input sessions. So if the majority or all of the candidates are comfortable with certain terminology, and we were working on lesson planning and stages and aims and things like that, most of them are familiar with everything. So it allows the tutors to enrich the input sessions a little bit more. Again, not a requirement. It's just something that happens in Brazil because teachers typically take the CELTA a little bit later in their career. And they've got some classroom experience, which allows us to be a little bit more flexible. So it's quite interesting. And the group of students that we have, at least for the upper intermediate group that we have, are lovely. they're great students. So it's quite nice to have a good group of people that are really energetic. The students are great and talkative and quite nice to each other. So it was good to see that when I taught them. There was only a couple of them that were able to show up, but hopefully next week we'll have more. And next week we're really kind of digging in where we have the full input sessions, not just the get to know you and introductions. We'll have a full 4 hours of input sessions on Tuesdays, and Thursdays we will have some of the teachers doing their first teaching practice. So it will be fun to see that we've really dived into the course, and I will get back to you with any updates. I'm trying to think of any reflections. It's just nice to see this group that I'm working with. They're quite a good group of teachers. They all seem very, very kind, and they're really helping each other out. There's no competition or anything within the group. There's no conflict or animosity. They work well with each other, but they're still trying to get their bearings. It's a bit overwhelming the first week because there's a lot of information and trying to understand where to find the resources and what they need to do. So they're a little disoriented in that sense because they're trying to figure everything out. But I think the first week was quite successful, and excited to jump into the second. So that is it for me today. The first week was just, trying to get things checked off my checklist and get everybody in the group ready to go for next week 2. Stay tuned. I'll be back and I'll give you some tips and pointers and you can kind of follow my journey here. All right, I will see you guys later. Thanks.